So guys, I am still harvesting buckets of bumblebee cherry tomatoes. And these are not pretty anymore, but I've left them up there still packed with tomatoes. You can see some that are blushing back there. But these have been by far the most prolific producers this season. So I had 3 bumblebee tomatoes here, and I keep giving bags away to friends and to my son who likes to cook with cherry tomatoes, and they're just amazing. I can't say enough about them, and they taste wonderful, and they're just beautiful. Look at this. This is the edge of my shirt, just gathering them all up here. I didn't have a bucket, so I'm making do with using my shirt. But isn't that, it's just amazing. You know, here we are, early October, and I am still bringing in buckets of bumblebee tomatoes. I believe this was a Baker Creek variety. So each week I like to have garden goals, and one of the garden goals this week was to use firewood to make an edging for my second rustic bed, otherwise known as the orchard bed. So here we go, guys. It couldn't have been easier. I just bought some firewood and it's already split. It looks like I did a lot of hard work splitting the wood, but all I did was edge it around my garden bed. And I don't think I've shown this to you. I did put in some beans in an effort to improve the soil. I put it in, and there's not much here except cardboard, a little bit of homemade compost, and a layer of mulch. So I wasn't sure if my beans would come up. And again, it's just for like a living mulch and to add some nitrogen to this mix, prepare it for next spring. And you know, all of that organic matter will break down, plus anytime you plant a legume, there's going to be nitrogen modules on those roots that when the plant dies back or gets cut back are released into the medium around it, into the soil. So I'm thrilled to see that, and I think my garden bed looks a lot neater, mulched, and with its new edging. So I am thrilled, guys. And it was pretty economical and pretty easy. I'm throwing some rotting persimmons on there, and the bees are loving it. We have lots of bee visitors coming to munch on the persimmon, and that'll break down and nourish the soil as well. So it's sort of like a compost pile in place. And the other thing I threw out in here were arugula seeds, and it might be too coarse of a mix for them to germinate, but I happen to have some for microgreens, and I thought, why not? They're a good winter green for the milder part of the winter, and if they sprout, that would be great. So things are in progress with this bed, and I hope by next spring I'll be planting it up with the peach trees and then some crops underneath. And I've got lots of marigold plants doing really well in the rustic garden bed right next to it. A little bit of my basil still going, my purple opal basil, and it's put up flowers which the bees love. And I can probably manage to get some seed from that as well once they finish being pollinated and dry a bit. So I'm really happy, especially with this side of the bed, how that's going. Milder weather just brings a nice lushness as the plants bounce back from the heat of the summer. Here's some more little sweet cherries on a terrible looking tomato vine, but I just grin and bear it when it comes to this because I enjoy eating all the tomatoes through the fall as long as they're willing to produce. And one of my peppers down here is turning red. So things are still growing here even though the weather is dipping. And I sprinkled radish seeds out of a microgreens mix all throughout here. And if they turn into anything, I can pull a few out and eat them. They're around this beautiful marigold plant. And if not, I'll just let them die in the soil and create more nutrients. So as you can see, I'm doing a lot of cover cropping and living mulch. Just trying to enrich my soil after I've used it. Here's a pretty thick patch of radishes here. But I'm trying to enrich it after a season of use. And this is a patch of soil I've really been working on since last year, trying to add more nutrients. And as I pull out more and more of the summer plants, it's starting to look neater. I grew this sorghum Sudan grass also as a winter mulch. So once that dies back, I can chop it up and spread it around. Add in more biomass. A couple of them came up over here, but I do have the thickest stand of it over here. And it's making seeds, which of course, you know me, I can't resist collecting seeds. I always like to do a seed harvest. So once those look a little drier, I will collect my Sudan grass seeds and maybe plant some next year. But look, it's nice and tall. It's about 5 feet tall, and all of that will be chopped down and added to the soil. Here's a little garden slug. I know they're the enemy of many gardeners, but I get a kick out of them. I think they're amazing little creatures. He's out on his morning stroll. This could take a while. The horseradish roots I planted from the grocery store last year looked horrible all summer, and they put out a few leaves, but now that it's cooler, they've put up beautiful, lush leaves. So it must like cooler weather. And those are horseradish, and I grew those for the biomass. But it's always nice to know you can dig up a few roots if you need some spicy additions to your cooking. Isn't that a pretty leaf? When they're not all eaten up by pests, they're actually a really pretty big lush plant. It's almost time for me to bring in my geraniums, and the way I do that, I'll probably do that in the next week or two, is I take them out of the pot and I take all the soil off. I just kind of tap off all the soil, let them really dry out and feel the cooling temperatures. And after a couple weeks of just drying and feeling those cool temperatures, I can box them up for the winter. And I did this last year, and when I took them out in the spring and planted them up, it was only a week or two before they started growing again. So it's really an easy way to put your geraniums into dormancy, and I'll make a video when I do that. But it's hard to do when they still look so good and they're still putting up blooms. So I guess once they start to look like they're not enjoying the weather anymore, that's probably when I'm going to do it. And I would imagine that's going to be in about a week or two. And I have more of my marigolds. I'm so thrilled with my marigolds, guys. I really think fall is the best season for marigolds. This one has a really fringy look. I love these. I'll definitely be collecting some seed from these. So beautiful. And I popped a few pansies in here under my blueberry bush. I hope they don't mind the acidified soil. We shall see. So far it's been over a week and they look pretty happy. So I popped those in and gave it a little mulch. And that is just a bucket tote, a plastic bucket tote in blue, and it does look kind of dirty sometimes, so I did put some cardboard under it to keep the dirt from splashing up, but I thought that was a cheap solution to get a big pot, and I've drilled some holes in that, and it enables me to control the acidity in the soil for my blueberry plant. So I hope next year my blueberry plant looks like something. we'll see. My friend Lori asked me if I could use her cocoa coir baskets for anything. She was cleaning out her containers, and I said, of course. And I've used them in a couple areas for mulch. So this one is mulching my baby sapling red bud tree, which looks terrible now, but in the spring it'll look much better when it comes back, and it will be happy to have a blanket around its roots. So she always asks me before she throws anything away, and if I hadn't used it here, I could have put it in the compost, but that's going to have nice warm feet for the winter. I picked up a pot of Coleus, and I think I'm going to try to overwinter it. I have a couple of cuttings from the Coleus that I've grown this year, but I thought this was such a pretty mix, and it gave me 3 different kinds. So we'll see. I don't know if it'll make it through to next spring, but it certainly is pretty fall color in a container. It's not hardy in my area though, so I will have to bring it in. Isn't that pretty, guys? Let me give you a close-up of some of these leaves. I think they're just gorgeous. And I really like the idea of having different varieties in the same pot. Another thing I bought were some tulip bulbs. This is called the Blue Moon Mixed variety. And last year I planted a lot that looked like this lighter purple, more pinky purple, and I thought this would go with them. They didn't have the same mix, but tulips don't always come back for me here in Maryland. So because I wanted to make sure I got tulips again, I thought I better buy another bag. And I think these will look beautiful with the others if they should happen to come up. So I'm very excited to plant these, and I'm probably going to let it get a little bit cooler before I plant them, maybe mid-October. But I think they are so gorgeous. And here's a terrible pot of mums, but the reason it looks terrible is I couldn't resist saving some little pieces of mums that were on the floor at Lowe's, and I just popped them into some soil, and I'm hoping some or all of them root out. This one in the front looks kind of green, so we'll see what happens, but you know, it's worth a try. If you have a pot of dirt, you can always give it a try propagating, see what happens. If it works, I may have a new mum plant or two that will look good next year. And here is my little bucket of parsley. I just scattered some seeds about 2.5 weeks ago, and aren't they beautiful? New little parsley plants, and they'll really fill out this pot next year. And it is the favorite food of caterpillars that turn into swallowtails. So it's always good to have pots of parsley around your garden. Here's another little redbud tree, which I think I'm just going to let grow up in place. It's right next to this hosta bed, and this hosta bed is in too much sun now. So in a couple of years, I hope that this little sapling down here will provide some shade and make it better conditions for the shade-loving plant. And guys, this is the prettiest time of year for my autumn Anthem Miscanthus. Aren't these beautiful? These are all along the driveway, and they look so pretty. Let me give you a close-up of some of these seed heads. They're like plumes of gorgeousness, and they have a little bit of a reddish golden quality. So amazing. This was one of the best plants I've planted in my front yard. It kind of makes a little fence here along the side, and it's just beautiful. And then of course I use the foliage when it dies back. I'm going to use it on my new path in the back. So thanks for walking around the garden with me today, guys, and I hope you're enjoying your fall garden as well. I'll see you next time.